fine. All right, well, first I want to begin with an announcement. 2 weeks from today, so what is today, the 11th, so 18th, 25th, July 25th, I will resume live face-to-face meetings on Sunday morning, as well as the Zoom meeting. So you don't have to be here. It'll be at the Pine Street Church Salon Room, otherwise known as the Parlor. We'll meet in here at 9 o'clock on the 25th, but I will have Zoom enabled, so you will be able to participate virtually. Hopefully everything will go well. David and I are going to this week try out the technology and make sure everything is going to work properly for us. But that'll be the 25th, July 25th. I also want to bring to your attention, I received a lot of positive responses in my Finding Meaning and Mission in the Second Half of Life series last year. And so what I would like to do is on August 7th, that's a Saturday, I'd like to do a day seminar on that topic, Finding Meaning and Mission in Life. It'll be here at Pine Street Church as well. So look for further details. I'm going to send out an email to you this week with the details regarding that event. So stay tuned. All right, we are beginning part 3 of our Now What series and turning the next chapter in our life. In the previous presentations of gaining clarity around our next moves, I've emphasized doing what energizes us the most and avoiding asking how we will accomplish our goals and projects, and instead ask, who can help me accomplish my goals and projects? Now, today, I hope to give us another tool for gaining clarity about our next moves in life. What do these artists all have in common? What do these artists all have in common? They did not let their past artistic styles or even their calling to art keep them from changing and evolving into new expressions and new directions. Now, I don't get a chance to see Vasily Kandinsky's work very often living out here in the Southwest United States. So visits to the art museums of the Northeast always mean taking in as many Kandinskys as possible. He is best known for his abstract works, being one of the first to popularize that artistic style. Though, as brought to my attention recently by one of our members, he was not the first abstract artist. That honor may very well belong to a Swedish woman, Hilma af Klint. She started painting abstract works inspired by her spiritual philosophy in 1906. Now, Jane Gray, hopefully I'm not embarrassing you, but thank you for bringing that to my attention. And she recommended including her in a presentation in the future, which I will try to accommodate. Now, in looking at Kandinsky's paintings, just a few of them, I want you to pay attention to the dates so you understand clearly how his artistic style changed as he matured in years. Kandinsky was Russian, but began traveling throughout Europe in the late 19th century and the first several years of the 20th. He settled in Germany. His style was influenced by woodcutting etchings and exposure to neo-impressionism, like the early work of Matisse. The woodcut technique emphasized a reduction of details to the essence of the line and form, which you can see has influenced him in this painting. But Kandinsky, already being exposed to the mystic element in the Russian Orthodox Church, began studying theosophy, which emphasized this pure experience of spirit, this mystical element being expressed in the esoteric traditions of all the major world religions. How could he paint pure spiritual feeling? That's what he was after, without the dogma, which inherently came along with objective expressions. The analogy he needed to help him was music. Music produces immediate, deep feeling, even though it is entirely a non-objective medium. How could he use this idea in painting? Well, this was rather easy to solve for Kandinsky because he had synesthesia, which is a condition where he could literally see sounds as various colors. Now, this work is a classic example of the artistic style known as non-objective expressionism. Expressionism seeks to express only the interior experience of the artist, the emotions, thoughts, feelings, without regard to objective forms. Now, there can be recognizable subjects in expressionist painting, but it is usually distorted to emphasize the emotional state of the artist. The goal is to evoke similar emotions and thoughts in the viewer. Now, I couldn't discuss the evolution of style in an artist without discussing this man, Pablo Picasso. This work, which I saw at the Met in New York City, is an example of Picasso's classic blue period. Picasso went through a literal blue period after the suicide of his best friend. The blue represented his mood, but it equally soothed his barbed emotional life. This work was painted only a few years after Head of a Woman. Close by that painting is this one of my favorite paintings, a portrait of Gertrude Stein. It took Picasso months to complete the face. He just couldn't get it right until he observed the Iberian and African sculptures he had started collecting. That gave him the inspiration he needed to complete the Stein portrait. And as we all know, the Cubist period was next, and many believe it started with this portrait. The Cubist phase is one we all know and love, right? We all love Cubism, don't we? Well, if not, we can at least all respect its place in modern art. And perhaps Picasso is best known for this particular style. But he didn't stay there either. In the late 20s, Picasso changed his style again. This guy was all over the place. Now, so many artists who find success in one style are reluctant to change and will continue expressing that style for the rest of their lives because there's an established market for it. But not Picasso. He was always open to the creative spirit, the daimon, moving him in new directions. It takes courage to evolve and live in integrity to the changes happening inside of us. In the late 1940s, Picasso took another turn in artistic expression by working in ceramics. He worked almost daily in ceramics for the rest of his life, favoring it even to painting. Now, the public wanted more paintings, but Picasso's daimon, his creative spirit, was demanding his hands touch clay. Next, we turn to one of the strangest artists of the 20th century, and along with Picasso, is considered the artist who did more to change the plastic arts in the 20th century than any other artist, Marcel Duchamp. Now, early in his painting career, he was fairly traditional. You could see in these works that he was well-trained in the fundamentals. But Duchamp's daimon was restless as well. Here we have a work almost all of us could love, I think. Some Cubist influence is in it for sure, but the lines are softer. The form's not as sharp as we're used to with Cubists like Picasso and Braque. But then Duchamp dove deep into Cubism, but he added his own unique flair, usually with color. And also from 1912, this very famous work, which was the talk of the Armory show, which introduced European modern art to the American public. And it also made Marcel Duchamp notorious and wealthy by artist standards. But then Duchamp goes his own way with this work, and he will continue going his own way for the rest of his rather short career as a full-time artist. Here is my son contemplating Fountain in the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Now, most of you are familiar with this work from maybe a past presentation I gave. It is a urinal turned on its back. What do you think? Was Marcel Duchamp a mad artistic genius? Or was he simply mad? Let me ask you, have you ever had a crazy idea that captivated your attention, yet seemed so out of the ordinary that you didn't share it with anyone, lest you be ridiculed? I would like us to pause a moment to seriously consider that question. Have you ever had a crazy idea that captivated your attention, yet seemed so out of the ordinary that you didn't share it with anyone, lest you be ridiculed? From about 1923 on till late in his life, Duchamp ceased being an artist. He just stopped. At the height of his reputation in the art world as the king of avant-garde, when all of the most famous and influential art critics and curators and gallery owners craved his attention. Now, he would dabble again here and there in creating work, but he was no longer a full-time artist. Instead, he naturally took up chess. Of all things, chess. Now, let me ask you, do you feel your next move must follow from something you've done in the past, from some skill set you spent half your life developing? Duchamp learned to play chess at a time in his life when most of us feel we are an old dog that can't learn new tricks. What a bunch of rotten hooey that is. We can learn new tricks at any age. When asked late in his life why he changed his vocation, Duchamp said, quote, "I am still a victim of chess. It has all the beauty of art and much more. It cannot be commercialized. Chess is much purer than art in its social position." And he also said, "The chess pieces are the block alphabet which shapes thoughts, and these thoughts, although making a visual design on the chessboard, express their beauty abstractly, like a poem. I have come to the personal conclusion that while all artists are not chess players, all chess players are artists." Something made clear to me in a recent meeting of spiritual seekers I attended. The teacher was trained by a rabbi, and so she discussed the Torah and what it actually means. Unbeknownst to me, and I have theological training, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Hebrew scriptures, is an action word. It literally means orienting oneself continually toward a guide. Now, the usual translation of Torah as law gives a false impression. We often think of law as something that's fixed, even though laws also are dynamic and change as the society for which the law is a guide changes. But think about a tour guide, for example. A tour guide is not someone who stays still. They continually move in order to impart their knowledge and wisdom to us. And so we must enter a dynamic relationship to the guide where we have to continually reorient ourselves to where they are. Well, what does this mean for us? Well, what gave us direction in the past is not static, and we are not static. If something in the past gave us meaning and direction, it gave us meaning and direction by orienting us effectively toward some ideal. That ideal may have been our sense of being a responsible partner or a capable parent or a productive member of a community or an organization. But now that past activity, identity, skill set may no longer give us meaning. We need to reorient ourselves toward our guide, our daimon, our creative spirit, which has most likely changed over the years. We need to then adjust to that moving guide if we wanted to continue giving us meaning and direction. For example, something I've experienced and that I see prevalent in our modern world. For millennia, up until not so long ago, traditional religion was the means by which members of a community were able to orient themselves to something that gave meaning and direction in life. Religion, however, is dynamic. It moves, it expands, it evolves. But what people have a tendency to do is try to fix their particular religion to what it was at a particular moment in their personal history when it offered significant direction. When we change, which is inevitable, we find we have difficulty orienting ourselves to that particular manifestation of the religion. And we either reject the religion entirely or simply engage with it out of habit, even if it doesn't give our life much zest anymore. We struggle to reorient ourselves to that older concept of the religion, which really is no longer able to serve our spiritual needs. That's because religion is dynamic. It is much bigger than a particular historical expression of it. What these artists experienced was the spirit of creative energy flowing through them and expressing itself in various ways. But these artists did not confuse a particular expression of that creative spirit with the spirit itself. They continued a dynamic dance with that energy, which led them to new places in their artistic life. And friends, it's the same for us. We have to tap into that creative spirit, which has always been available to us and which gave us meaning and purpose in a particular way at a particular moment of our past. But we must allow that spirit to take us in new directions. That may mean learning a new skill or entering new relationships or partnerships. Who we were in the past and how we once defined ourselves may no longer be that relevant to who and what we need to be now. Well, I'd like to introduce you to our final example, who I think illustrates this point well. Atel Adnan was born in Beirut, Lebanon in 1925 and was educated at the University of Paris, UC Berkeley, and Harvard University. She is still alive, by the way. That makes her 96 years old. Now, by training, Atel is a philosopher. For around 25 years, she taught philosophy at the Dominican University of San Rafael in California. I believe she still lives in California as well as France part of the year. Though trained to be a teacher of philosophy, Atel's guide, her daimon, shifted during her middle years. And so Atel adjusted as well. She loves to write, and she became a journalist. But she later expanded her love of writing to include essays, novels, and in particular, poetry, for which she is best known. Now, during the 50s and 60s, she also started dabbling in painting, but it was only a hobby. But when she turned the age of 50, she decided to commit herself to developing her painting talents. Most of her works are untitled, as these two are perfect examples. But as you can see, she is definitely a master of color. This work, hold on a second. Let me go back here. It wasn't until an exhibition in 2012 that she became known, really known as a visual artist. So she's well into her 80s, which she first is recognized for her painting. That would mean she painted for around 40 years before receiving any recognition as an artist. Now, the work on the left was painted in 1980 and the one on the right in 2010. She now has works in the collections of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, as well as other prestigious galleries in Europe. And as I said, she's definitely quite the master of color. This work on the left was part of an exhibit at the Aspen Art Museum in 2019, just a couple of years ago. I don't know how much longer Etel will paint, but she is becoming as well known for her visual art as her literary work. And she still writes, by the way. Her most recent book, which you see on the right, was published last year. As an accomplished painter and writer, Etel is obviously a creative person at her core. She creates stories, poems, paintings, as well as ideas. But she expresses her creativity in a myriad of ways. She didn't feel the need to stick with one expression. Let me ask you, do you know who you are at your core? What are the various ways you have expressed your passions and talents up to now? And what novel ways could you express yourself in the days ahead? I am an explorer at my core. I have always been that way. But I have expressed that desire to explore over the years in different ways. Through wanderlust, of course, through an interest in philosophy, an interest in world religions, an interest in art, an interest in ideas, an interest in problem solving. The latter has led me to think in entrepreneurial ways recently, but I also love writing and teaching about what I'm discovering. Friends, do you have an interest that you have only entertained in your mind, but have yet to fully express? Are you letting who you have been keep you from writing your next chapter in your life? What vitalizing ideas and thoughts do you entertain that you haven't allowed yourself to express through your actions? I hope these artists have challenged us and even inspired us to allow our daimon, our creative spirit, to lead us to new and adventurous paths. Well, thank you again for your presence. And now I invite your questions or comments.